Good morning or good afternoon. Today we'll be recording a video on Quizzette 606. As always, write your last name, comma, first name, the date, and your class color. Number 1 is going to ask you about greatest common factor. You guys might see that as GCF. Go ahead and write that. What you do is you list the factors that it's asking for, and in this case, it's asking for 8 and 6. So I'm going to list the factors of 6 and the factors of 8. My teachers taught me that when I write the factors, I always start with 1, and 1 times 6 is a factor, they're factors of 6. The next number is 2, and 2 times 3 is a factor of 6. And 4 and 5 are not factors of 6s. Are not factors of 6, so that's why I didn't list them. Another way you can think about it is like this. I think it's called like a factor rainbow. So you do 1 times 6, 2 times 3, and those are all the factors of 6. So now let's do another factor rainbow for the factors of 8. So we have 1 and 8, that's 1. 2 times 4 is also a factor of 8. And then 3 is not a factor of 8, and we have 4 right there. So we've already found all the factors of 8. Now we just have to find the greatest factor that they have in common. Obviously, we know that 1 is a factor of these, but that's not the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor isn't 6, it's not 8, it's not 4, it's not 3. By default, the only number that's left is 2. So the GCF is 2. Number 2 looks a lot like last week, and that is because it's almost the exact question as number 2. I just changed the diagram. So if you notice, the shapes are the same, but they're all in different spots of the graph. So I noticed that a lot of us got number 2 wrong. We didn't write the coordinates or the signs or whatever. So I just wanted to put it again on a Quizzette because this is a standard of 6th grade, and you are going to be expected to read a Cartesian plane, which is just the X and Y plane. So that's why I put it here. So again, it says determine the coordinates of the figure. Remember, when you write coordinates, it's X and Y. And these are the X's. These are the positive X's. These are the negative X's on this side. These are the positive Y's above the 0. And then underneath the 0, these are the negative Y's. So the first coordinate that it's asking you for is lightning. So the lightning is at 1, comma, 0. Because if you look here, it's at 1 on the x-axis, and it's also at 0 for y because 0 is right here on the y-axis. So it's not even at 1 or negative 1. It's actually at 0. So this is 1, comma, 0. Now I'm going to put the sign. 0 can't be positive or negative, but 1 is definitely positive. Make sure you're writing this down. The music note is located right here, and that's at negative 1, negative 1, negative 3. Negative 1, negative 3. And the red X is right here, and that's at positive 6, and I believe that's negative 9. But let me confirm that. So we have negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, negative 8, yep, negative 9. Some of you didn't notice this, but this line right here is kind of darker than the other lines. And that's positive 5. This line right here is darker than the other lines, and that's positive 5 on the y-axis. And then this line right here is not positive 5 on the x-axis, but it's negative 5. And then this line right here is negative 5. So the reason those are darker is so that you don't have to count from 0 all the time. You can start counting from 5. So for instance, this circle right here, you can start counting from here. Negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, negative 8, negative 9. And then you can also start counting from here. 0, 1. So it's at negative 9, 1. Now, the circle is not being asked here. These black lines that I just redrew are for you to know where to start counting from. Please ask questions for these. If you're confused, ask questions for number 2. You should all get the 3 checks every single day because this is This is something that this is the second week we're going over this, okay? Number 3, what is the least common multiple? So you guys know this as LCM, lowest common or least common multiple. So I'm going to write the multiples of 5 and the multiples of 10. So just list them out. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. I'm going to write until I run out of room. Then the multiples of 10 are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So what is the lowest factor that they have in common, or the least factor that they have in common? 5 is not a factor of 10, so it can't be 5. And the next one is 10. And look, 10 is in both of those factors, or multiples, I'm sorry, multiples. So they have 10 in common. So the LCM, the least common factor, the least common multiple, I keep saying factor, the least common multiple is 10. Next week, you guys are going to get a list of 3 numbers instead of just 2 numbers. That one will be a little bit more complicated. And then next week, instead of having 2 numbers, you're going to have 3 numbers. So that's going to also be a little bit more complicated. And here, you're going to get challenged on another question. Have no fear. You will be prepared. If you have any questions, raise your hand, and maybe I'll let you guys work in groups. Thank you, Purple class.